Hi, this is Mike Swanson. I'm in the Bahamas on Eleuthera Island with Dave Skarica, and we thought we'd have a little talk with you about investing in gold and gold stocks. That tends to be your specialty for your service, or has been over the years, of different writings and so forth.
What's funny is in our first two videos, we didn't even mention gold stocks once. And actually, there's some alternative energies that, for me, in the last few months have been my best investments. But kind of my thesis, and this has been the case for the last 10 years and still is going forward, is that the long-term place to be is gold and other precious metals, like silver, because what's happened in the United States and in Europe is basically that people are printing money and governments are printing money, and this is going to drive the value of paper currencies, not just the dollar or not just the euro when people get worried over the euro crisis, but all paper currencies lower. And I think you look at like the dollar versus the euro, it's more of like two floating abstractions. It almost doesn't mean anything because both areas are so indebted. And for example, the European Central Bank, even though they talk a tougher game than the Fed, their balance sheet is now bigger than the Federal Reserve's, balance sheet. So they're basically printing money and taking on, bad assets of the banks in Europe just as much as the Fed did in 2008. So that's why I like gold longer term, because the euro and dollar or even other currencies you can trade, but the longer term kind of protection and I think way to make money in a conservative manner against these devaluations in currencies is gold and precious metals. And then trickle down from there, I invest a lot in the gold stocks, I do a lot in the gold juniors, and I think that because of the European debt crisis in 2008, all equities were sold, including precious metals equities. We had gold up about 15%, and we had precious metals equities down about 15%. So we have this nice set of valuations going now in the gold and gold stocks.
Well, what do you think is going on now with them? Like, in 2008 they crashed, then 2 years after that they had this enormous rally. I think they may have outperformed about every other sector in the stock market during that time. But over the past year or two, the gold stocks have been kind of going sideways, and at times the metal is doing better than the stocks. So what do you think's going on with the stocks, or do you think this kind of stuff's going to change at some point?
Oh, I think at some point the value is going to be realized in the stocks, because the stocks right now are just too cheap. They can't stay this cheap for long. It's either, gold's going to 1,300, or the stocks are going to catch up to the metal. I don't know when that is, and I've been calling for that for a while. But I think that's at some point you're really going to see an outperformance in the gold and gold stocks. Now, there's certain stocks that have outperformed, certain ones have lagged, so you have to kind of pick and choose your spots. But I'd be surprised if it wasn't sometime this year or in 2013 that the stocks really begin to outperform. And one of the sectors I really do a lot is the junior sector, like I said, and that's really interesting because the junior index in Canada really started to outperform about the last month or so. Like when the HUI and the XAU had pullbacks in January, juniors didn't really have much of a pullback. So it looks to me that and I've seen a couple takeovers, some consolidation in the industry, which should happen because the juniors are so cheap. But really, I think that we're starting to see the outperformance now. And I would think by the fourth quarter of this year that the outperformance hopefully really kind of takes off.
Well, I know back in the mid-90s, gold was relatively, flat. It wasn't anything like the price it is now. But there is a great bull market in the junior mining industry because they made some discoveries in Canada and elsewhere. Do you see are there any parts of the world now, do you think, that are real intriguing for junior mining investors?
One spot that's really good right now is Colombia. Colombia is interesting because, they have the drug cartels for years and years, and it was a dangerous place to do business, but now that's kind of all ended, and the country is really opening up to mining, and you have great geology in Colombia, but it's really unexplored. A lot of the Latin American countries in general are like that. To a lesser extent, Peru's like that. A country I'm going to visit probably in March, Panama, is really a service-oriented economy, but they have mining there. But they've, because these countries are run by dictators or, left-wing, governments, they never really opened up the mining industry. Now you're seeing that. So I like a lot in Latin America. And the nice thing about Latin America, too, is that's kind of their way of participating in the global boom. Asia is where you have the big consumer base. You have over 2 billion people. Actually maybe close to 3 billion people. They're going to buy this stuff. And Latin America is going to be the area in the world because Latin America, I think, only has about 300 to 400 million people total in the entire continent. that's going to be the area that kind of produces the stuff and sells it to Asia. So I like a lot of Latin America. There's a few countries in Asia that are kind of opening up as well. But I would say, yeah, like a lot of Latin American countries right now are kind of my favorite countries. And there's the mainstays, like mining is always, very friendly in places like Australia and Canada and places like that. And you just got to watch it that you don't get the government grabs and things of that nature. Like governments see that there's a big fine and try to take over half the property.
Mm-hmm. Well, if people want to find out more about junior mining stocks and what you have to offer, where should they go? And this is like the last day that we're going to offer this special deal that we put together.
I would go to addictedtoprofits.net, and like we said in the other video, we're going to raise the price after this. So this is kind of the last chance you have on this deal to get into this price. But yeah, if you want to find out more information on myself, I have a media page on addictedtoprofits.net where I post a lot of my radio interviews, a lot of video interviews like these, maybe some articles that I've written. So you just go to my media page, and you'll see right at the top of the page on addictedtoprofits.net.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to everyone. We'll do another video in the future.
Thank you.